Click the links to support the channel, send me art, comics via email or P.O. Box, or maybe weed if it is legal to do so. I actually don't drink or do drugs. But, maybe you could persuade me to try some. If you send me art, please sign your name and channel name in the corner if you want credit for it. Some people are going to be sending me some Comicsgate comics. With your permission, I will read them, make a video about them, then give them away to the subscribers. Let me know when you mail something so I can check the P.O. Box. If you want to, you can send drawings. Just fold them up and mail them. I'll put them on my wall. There's literally nothing on my wall. I know folding art is verboten to people, but it's much cheaper to mail it that way. Maybe I can press it between some textbooks or iron it or something. A few topics in Comicsgate news. Kickstarter has shadow banned a Comicsgate project, Dynamite Thor by our own JDA. Now, I know that some of you are Team Ethan or Team Mike, and there is a three-way autistic lovers spat among these fat, bald old men, but surely we can all agree that censorship sucks donkey balls. Do we stand by the principles of free expression and diversity of thought, or are we soy boy candy asses? The Quartering said in an alcohol-fueled Spurg rant that Comicsgate was imploding due to Ethan being a prima donna on her period. He said that Cyberfrog 2 wouldn't beat the first one, which hit about 1 million. I actually assume it will beat it. My guess is it'll hit at least 1.5 million. The Comicsgate audience is so much bigger than it was when Cyberfrog hit 1 million. The first campaign did have outrage marketing to help it. People were so mad at that sodomite Marks Wade that they poured money into Comicsgate. So I understand that those initial conditions have changed and people have learned that EVS can be vicious, vindictive, and cruel. But he's also a good artist who, one hopes, learned from the mistakes of his first campaign, being late, poor printing quality, and short page count. And I hope it's square-bound this time. Imagine paying so much for a floppy magazine that you can't even put it on your bookshelf. Be better, Ethan. But all jokes aside, he is a good artist and a funny guy, and I actually like his writing better than his art. You can find his old 90s Cyberfrog that I'm talking about. Very, very funny. But some people wish that he got a better writer. I like his art a lot, but maybe he can have Mike Miller do a cover for him, because Mike is better at drawing women than EVS. EVS has sort of cucked in the boob size department and made his women look like angry lesbians, where Mike believes in gravity-defying udders. Comics are fiction. You don't need realism in comics. The Fourth Age did a 26-minute video that I will sum up for you in 30 seconds. He took a deep look at Ta-Nehisi Coates' Captain America and why it's so lame now. Virtue comes from making good decisions while having free will. The Daughters of Liberty were behind the scenes pulling the strings, so nothing Captain did mattered. In 2019, on Comic-Con, I checked, it was selling in the 30,000s. Captain America, the films that made billions. Because it's written by Coates, a low IQ, useless twat who has been told he's smart by manipulative Machiavellian machinators who want to use him as a token propaganda puppet. Plus, he's really racist, and racists make me laugh. But worse, he is a hypocritical one. He pretends that he isn't. At least Farrakhan will come out and tell you that he thinks you're Untermensch. I actually wanted to take a look at this. This is something I would consider very, very well drawn, very dynamic. And no, I would never throw shade at Ethan's art because I think he's a really good artist. I mean, it's objectively true. This is a less dynamic image, but maybe it's out of context. For some reason, this just doesn't jump out at me as there's a lot of motion going on or something's happening, where for some reason this does. But I'm not an artist, and again, this is probably out of context. But as you can tell by the other art, I'm assuming he did it. This is good. I mean, this is more like I guess it's probably a pinout or poster or something. That's pretty solid, dude. That's a pretty good piece of art right there. And credit to, I can't read the signature in the bottom. Credit to the colorist who did the shading and all that kind of stuff. That's solid. The Low Woods. Sorry, Kyle Ritter did the colors. He's got he signed it Critter in the bottom. Anyway, let me show you this chick, the chick who wrote this. You see that picture? Don't be catfished. That's her. This chick, a obese lesbian who really seems to hate men of a certain color. She must have really been a fan of Stephen King, because the story idea really sounds like she is channeling him. I know he isn't dead, but his spirit died about 20 years ago. Don't get me started on Stephen King. The dude is a far-left nutter, but he dared to say that he judged art on its merits. Of course, Twitter Marxist destroyed him, and predictably he backpedaled like a clown. Never apologize to Marxists, never back down. You will never please everyone, so don't try. Be yourself, and you'll find that others enjoy that honesty, even when they never agree with you. Okay, this kind of creepy cover by Joe Hill. He's the publisher, but he didn't write it. Though it feels like he did write it, or Stephen King. Not that he wrote it. Feels like he set the background or something. It's weird. Story has potential, but it is ruined by racism and sexism. As soon as you see the lead characters are not people of the light, you know that it's going to be F. Whitey, because every single time it is. I deliberately pick comics with brown girls on the cover because I know they're going to be cringe. I use the example that comics should be more like romance novels. Give the reader exactly what he wants. A simple story with the characters and plot he wants. You aren't a master storyteller. You aren't writing the great American novel. You're writing a comic book. And because of your incessant propaganda, it's not selling worth a darn. What percentage of your audience is black lesbians? This should be an obvious question, though I imagine that if they were sitting in a meeting and someone raised that question, this is what you'd hear. Someone raised a question. That's what you'd hear. Someone would walk in with a record player and deliberately scratch the needle across the record, because that's what would happen. People would look at you, and they would quickly show you the door and say, "Clean out your desk. Just go. We don't just leave." Black girls are about 6% of America. The gays are a few percent. So do the math. A few percent of a few percent is a very small number. It's less than 1%. You cannot run a business like comics on that. That's just your potential audience. Now take the percentage of those girls who are willing to pay you $4 for a comic about them. That's the number of people who are buying your product. That's why comics is a part-time job for you. Because you're not selling a product, you're subsidizing propaganda. That's why Marxists hate capitalism. Because the idea of a meeting of the minds, the exchanging of your comics for someone's money, is an anthem to them. Because their ideas are not worth paying for. What does this comic boil down to? Oh, sweet Jesus. Oh, this is great. What a vicious character he must be. Red hair, green eyes, every single time. What does it boil down to? It boils down to white men are bad, brown lesbians are good. The Irish coal miners who suffered for hundreds of years under slavery and brutal conditions, their suffering doesn't matter because their story doesn't fit your narrative of pale skin as the oppressor. Most European immigrants, God, what are you doing? Shaved head, I didn't even, of course she has a shaved head. What did you expect? Listen, I'm just going to say no high school girl is going to throw around a high school boy taller than her, because men are stronger than women. Almost most of the time. God, this just pisses me off. So it doesn't fit the narrative of pale skin as the oppressor. Most European immigrants suffered horribly. They were the oppressed, the victimized, and marginalized, the disenfranchised. The Eastern and Southern Europeans suffered under the white Englishmen and, well, I won't say that part, I'll call it censored oppressors. But Marxists are quick to try to erase their stories because their goal is to conflate almost everyone with pale skin into one category and call them privileged. The Irish, Polish, Spanish, Portuguese, Italians, Greek, the Untermensch, etc. were not privileged. They were slaves under communism or Islam. Remember that the oppression is passed on through generational trauma. The oppressed can't be the oppressors. Once you take facts and reason off the table, you can make any argument that you wish. You can't defeat an argument that's based on feelings. I feel that I am oppressed. and you are oppressing me. It's subjective. It's cultural Marxism 101. They hate it when you turn the tables on them, use their arguments against them. Bring up the history of who the oppressors throughout history have been. Do I say this part? Oh, shit, I don't know. Oh, in 10 minutes? Yeah, nobody's going to get to this far. I think I'm safe. Cough, cough. The two Abrahamic faiths that aren't Christians. I won't go into details here because YouTube will destroy the channel. Into the Low Woods is set in a coal mining town. Well, 99.9% of coal miners in American history have been probably Irishmen, or at least Europeans, because they are hobbit-sized and have been treated like monkeys by their oppressors for hundreds of years. So what Marxists do is try to erase the suffering of the Irish by race-swapping them for brown people. Think how sick you have to be to try and erase the trauma of a people. It doesn't even make for a good story. By replacing the Irish for Africans, the reader knows that something is wrong with the story. It doesn't sit right with them. The story has to bend over backwards to try to make the Irish the bad guys. I call it the black astronaut, the unicorn, the statistical improbability. You have the story with two brown girls and a few Irish boys. Here's the humorous part. The red-haired boys are the bad guys. That doesn't make sense mathematically. In any diverse town, that is a statistical rare event. It's the other way around. If you grew up in a diverse area, you know who the bad guys are. It's statistically not the red or blonde-haired kids. Who are the bullies in your school exactly? Don't believe me? There are thousands of videos on YouTube showing you what the schools are like and who is causing the issue. At least for now. I get the feeling that YouTube will be slowly getting rid of those world star type videos because they go against the narrative. Another disturbing issue, the comic is written by an adult lesbian who writes about children having sex. She shows them naked in bed together. I don't know if I clipped that issue. I guess I didn't. She shows them in bed together. Yes, kids bang each other. It's how some of us... Oh, I just noticed the hairy legs as she's looking down. It's like they just wallow in filth as often as they can. Okay, yeah, kids have sex, of course. That's how some of us got here. But most people are not cool with sexualizing kids. This isn't the Middle East. But this is almost a minor issue. Not enough people are going to read this comic to worry about it. A few woke types will buy it to virtue signal and because the concept is good. But the constant Irish man bad narrative is really grating. The hatred slowly builds up. After reading it, you're going to feel sick at this undeserved hatred of a people who have suffered so much. Remember, the Irish are eternal victims. They can never be oppressors. That's how it works. If they can change definitions, then anyone can change definitions. You may wonder at how a society functions when we're using words that have contradictory meanings, and not very well is the answer. But that is an issue for a smarter person to analyze. It's a question that I will ask the Fourth Age if I get a chance. Perhaps if I grow my channel, I can get him on a live stream. The setting of this comic is a nice mix of Dean Koontz and Stephen King. It's a creepy vibe of ancient German black forests with beasts from some mystical cotier, menagerie? What's the word I'm looking for? Something fancy that sounds brainy. Anyway, like something out of a darker version of Xanth, Piers Anthony. The stories I read as a kid. Many stories are written with interchangeable characters in mind. If you wanted to sell to a Korean audience, you would just make the characters Korean. The target audience is America, and about half of America is Euro, 30% Spanish, the remainder African, and there's some, small bits of Asians tossed in there. So what does the writer do? She has a black and Latina lesbian mixed-raced couple. Neither group is LGBT... that's attractive. Yeah. Neither group is LGBT friendly or cool with mixed-raced couples. So there go your sales. Besides the silliness of it, in an Irish coal mining town, you're telling the story of lesbian teens who aren't Irish. GTFO. This is just pandering to your delusions. You've written a couple that will only appeal to such a tiny segment of the potential audience that you are basically writing a diary entry. It's such a convoluted assemblage of characters. Just make them a straight couple. If you want mixed race, fine. And let me be clear, if I wrote a story that has straight couples and I found out I was selling to a gay audience, I'd be like, okay, just go through and edit it and make the couples gay. Do what you want. Who's the target audience? Oh, you're selling to Mexican kids. Oh, guess what? Make them all Mexican then. Black kids, make them all black. Who has the money in their hand? That's what I'm going to write to. If you want to make a mixed race couple, fine. Make one Irish, one German. That way you can increase sales. Have some balls. Make the Spanish kids or African kids the bad guys. Nope, it has to be the blonde man bad. The exact opposite of reality. In fact, it's a trope of comics that when there is a diverse cast, the antagonists will always be the characters who are more Aryan. I mean, not every time. Only like in 99% of the comics, it's a blonde man or a red-haired person bad. It's a weird Joker world they live in where blonde dudes are the one committing the crime. It's gotten a lot worse in modern day, but even if you go back decades, you'll notice it. In major cities, Spider-Man and Daredevil will be capturing muggers in ski masks who are, of course, white, except back then the hair color would differ. I think they kind of made them try to look kind of Italian a little bit because they had dark hair and they always had 5 o'clock shadows and they kind of looked vaguely Italian. It was, you know... That's the thing with making bad guys, is the only way to be fair is split it up. I'm not saying you have to follow statistics exactly, because if you follow statistics exactly, you know who the bad guy would be. But what they're doing is they're doing the exact opposite. They're making, well, you know what they're doing. If you read comics, you know what's going on. And I'm saying compromise. Just swap through the protagonists and the antagonists. It doesn't... You're just gonna have to move through the end to get away from the blonde man bad thing. It's just absolute utter BS. Anyway, nowadays it's almost exclusively guys out of German central casting. It's if the people who control comics had their masks removed, and they can show their true faces of hatred for the blonde folk. It's like it is finally safe for them to be the monsters they were all along. I did this video on, someone gave me an old Apple iPad, which, I'm not a fan of Apple, but it came with a typewriter or a keyboard attachment to it, so you prop it up on the keyboard, so I type it out on the keyboard. So I want to thank them for that. That was very cool. Someone gave me a computer, too, and some other stuff. So people are very, very cool. Thank you for that. If you like, comment, subscribe, like I said, click the links, send me art to the P.O. Box, and just fold up that original art in an envelope, and I'll put it on my wall, because there's literally nothing on my wall but cobwebs. Literally, it's just blank. Well, I will frame it and put it up. Or send it in a cardboard. It's just, the shipping is such a bitch, I understand that. Anyway, guys, I will see y'all next episode.